and he jumped out of the car and started shooting. And I got hit in lower left heel. I was wearing a motorcycle boot, and I took the motorcycle boot off, and literally poured blood out of it. And when it went off, man, the shockwave rolled over me, and the shrapnel went through my hair and hit the guy behind me. And I sat down and asked everybody one time, why did I make it? Because I did some dumb stuff. That kid, that mama's boy, disappeared. Because even my mother said she didn't know me when I came back. She said I had ice water for blood. But what would the human race do with paradise?
Such complex thoughts from a man who puts dog biscuits in his son's lunch in middle school. You remember that? Hey there, adventure seekers. I'm Kenny, host of the Novel World Travels podcast, where I'll explore the transformative power of experience. Dive deep with me as I chat with extraordinary people, uncovering the lessons hidden in their journeys, the good, the bad, and the life-changing. Live vicariously, embrace new perspectives, and grow along with me on the Novel World Travels podcast. Hey everybody, welcome to the Novel World Travels podcast. Today we have the privilege of being joined by my dad, Kenneth Sr., a man whose insatiable curiosity and zest for exploration have taken him on extraordinary journeys. Growing up in Louisville, Kentucky, his world was initially limited, but hobbies like comic books and science fiction opened gateways, allowing him to learn about and envision the world beyond. This curiosity powered his decision to serve across multiple military branches, granting eye-opening experiences as a Marine in Vietnam and beyond. My dad has lived across America, and whenever my family moved somewhere new during my childhood, he made a point to getting delightfully lost as a way to discover each area's unique sights. His passion for novel experiences and his friendly nature, which sparked conversations with anyone who piqued his interest, exemplify a man hungry to uncover the world's marvels. Even in retirement, that hunger remains as new adventures await. It's this inspiring spirit of openness and yearning for personal growth that has left an indelible mark on my own outlook, though you'll have to listen to the end to discover how. Please welcome Kenneth Sr., my dad, a true explorer whose life reminds us to chase after the unknown with curiosity and wonder. Thanks for talking to me, Dad.
Hello, how's everyone doing? And hello, ladies and gentlemen, how you doing?
Yeah, so let's get into it. So growing up as specifically a black child in Jim Crow South of the 1950s, 60s, Louisville, it must have presented a myriad of challenges. Can you share of some of the barriers or injustices you faced and how that shaped your worldview at that point and the resilience that you may have gotten from that?
Okay, there were definitely disadvantages. There was still getting on the back of the bus. There were still areas that we couldn't go into without being assaulted or the police were being called on. At 6th Street, which was like the boundary, you weren't supposed to be called east of 6th Street after sundown. All the nightclubs for black people in West End. And along Walnut Street, which is the big street, there were clubs and bars and restaurants. And a lot of the black businesses like insurance companies and the like. That was where we went. But white guys from Fort Knox could go there and party, but we couldn't go anywhere else and party. So everybody was partying right there in that area. With schools, I went to Central High School, which was a predominantly black school. If you tried to transfer, they always said that you had to live in the area of another school, which was usually mixed or all white. Our school books were 5 years behind regular white kids' schools. Our advanced students were average students when they got to college. We thought they were ahead of everybody. Usually your advanced student is amazing, but they were usually average students when they got to other college.
You mentioned you mentioned not being able to be on the other side. Was it 6th Street?
6th Street, yeah, east of 6th Street.
So let me ask you: had you ever been caught on the other side of 6th Street?
No.
No. So there was never a time.
It was after
when you
sundown.
So there was never a time where you ended up in a neighborhood you weren't supposed to be in growing up?
Oh, a couple of times.
What happened?
I was chased out of I was riding a friend's bicycle. I always rode his bicycle because I didn't have one. I rode through this neighborhood at Balcom Park, and all these kids were chasing me throwing rocks. And I was fast enough, and I got out of the way. And then another time, I was out late at 18th and Hill Street at night. 6 white guys. One of them wanted to beat me up. The other guy said, "No, he's not doing anything. Leave him alone." By the grace of God, they didn't bother me. You had to have radar because you at night when you were out, you were in the wrong place. You had to look far ahead. Because if you had to see them, you had to make yourself out of target. Even if you were across the street and seeing them, you try not to be seen, or you'd be attacked. It wasn't all the time, but it was just
But
it happened that way.
You lived your life, and that was in the back of your head at many times, where you were supposed to be, where you weren't supposed to be.
Yes,
and
correct.
So that sort of shaped your initial ideas of race, correct?
Yes, it did. It made me curious, but it also, I knew what the rules were, but it still made me curious as to why is it like this? Why is it like this? It not only extended from just day to day, but even in the media, it extended there because you didn't see too many. All the cowboys were white. All the entertainers, very few entertainers, black entertainers. And then when they were on TV, we didn't have a recording device. You go to school and they say, "Hey man, did you see Jim Brown playing that West End or whatever it is?" Because it would happen and it'd be a long time before it happened again.
Really quickly, I just wanted to highlight to the listeners, there's a reason why I'm highlighting some of these things with him, because I have the privilege of knowing this gentleman. So I know some of the things that follow, and it really, really interesting how his perspective was developed over that time, and how it changed, and the events that changed it. So go ahead, Dad. Finish what you were saying.
But it was like we were 78 minutes, raised 78 minutes. So after church, my grandmother would take us walk every Saturday, and we always walked to this. It was a combination Greyhound Trailway bus station. So we always walked there, but we couldn't enter through the front. We always had to enter through the back. And in the front, when you look through the door to the front, it was pristine. It was really, really clean. And in the back, it smelled of cigarette smoke. The bathroom wasn't clean too much. You were always served after the white customers. And it took years. I didn't come through the front until I came back from Vietnam. Because the white people's bathroom was upstairs. And I just one day I said, "This is foolishness." And I just walked through the front door and went up to the bathroom upstairs. And then that was it. And I never did it again. This was after I got back from Vietnam. But I had to show that, this is crazy,
How'd that feel?
As a child,
how'd that feel when you went in there and you saw the?
It was good because it was good because it just it was like breaking a rule. It was like breaking a rule. You're not supposed to be able to come up front. And when I was a kid, we always came into the back.
Did you expect anything different when you went into that bathroom?
It was cleaner. It was clean. That was it, because when you went in the black bathroom, it was like cigarette butts and stuff like that. It had that beer joint smell. And they had seats in the back. They had seats in the back for the black people to sit. Wooden seats like pews. Whereas up front, there was seats for the restaurant and seats for the passengers to wait. And everything was one in the back.
There was a time where you and I guess you were a teenager, and you and a bunch of other guys were maybe doing some stuff you weren't supposed to, or I don't recall the story. Maybe you can tell it, but you ended up having a conflict from a white gentleman at one point. The group of kids that you were with, and he He decided to be a bit violent, huh? Do
Oh,
you
that
recall?
was when I went to summer school. Yeah, I went to Mama sent me to summer school, and it was the only place I could go to was Hazelwood, which was way out. So I had to catch my mama didn't have a car, so I could catch the bus. Back then, kids, we went everywhere on home, and so I caught the bus out there. So during recess, they were catching butterflies, and so the way they would do it is they would get bushes and they would get a piece of bushes and flatten them. So I was out there running around being silly like another kid, and dude hit me in the face with it was from a thorn bush, which had a rose bush which had thorns, and I clocked him, and then I got on top of him. And I was banging on them, and while I was banging on them, they were kicking me in my ribs, So every time they gave me something, I just transferred it to him. And it was just that I was hitting him because he hit me with a thorn bush, but it was different for them. You
So
know.
I thought you were gonna pick up on my cue, but I was actually referring to the time that the guy shot you.
Oh, I was thinking about that. I was out and it was a riot, and then people were rioting all over town. So I went out there, and my mother didn't want me to go out there, but being a stupid teenager, I went out there and I was running around. Oh,
What
look
was
at
the
the big
cause of the
windows!
riot?
Look, I don't
What was the?
remember.
Mm.
I don't remember, but it was one of those summers that they rioted in Detroit, Chicago. It was hot, and they were just people were rioting just
Was
about.
it post? Because I know that there were, if I'm not mistaken, there were riots after Dr. King was killed.
Yeah, but there was something before Dr. King was. There
Okay.
was something before that. Because the LA
Okay.
riots was probably really bad because they had a tendency of when there was a riot, because I remember the riots happened before I joined the Marine Corps. And I remember visiting LA to see my dad, and they hadn't built anything back,
Mm.
and it was years after that. They didn't build anything back. They did that well, it wasn't riots that tore down, but the majority of the blacks, I was subject a second, the majority of blacks lived in West End, and they were all in the West End. I remember that. And there were homes there. So they came up with a plan, and they said, well, we're going to have urban renewal. So they moved these people out, and they tore down all their houses. And there was nothing but fields, just empty fields. And they didn't build anything for years. I mean, decades. They didn't build anything for decades. They moved these people out. These were old people, and they just tore things down. They did the same thing with Walnut Street. Walnut Street was the financial hub for the black community. They tore it down and said, well, we're going to build something one day. And they never did. They never did. It was not good.
So what happened when you participated in that riot?
Well, I was running around. I remember I was running around. It was near a barbershop, and they threw bricks at this guy. He was driving a Mustang, and they threw bricks at this guy's car. The only thing I can tell you was he was white. That's all I can tell you. And he jumped out of the car and started shooting, and I got hit in lower left heel. And I still carry that bullet today. That bullet is between two bones in my leg. They bought some guy, he's old. They call him a Doc Holliday, some Doc Holliday guy. And he come over, like, oh, it went through, and stuff like that. So I got home. So, well, I didn't get home first. I went over to my cousin's girlfriend's house. And I said, Ricky, I've been shot. And so he said, oh, come on. And he said, he got mad at me. He took me home. And I was sitting down on the front porch, and he went and said, Miss Sylvia, Kenneth been shot. And my mother she started hovering over me and fussing. Uncle James, he being like a nanny. Hey, you shouldn't have been out there. Listen to your mother and stuff. So I was wearing a motorcycle boot. And I took the motorcycle boot off, and then they poured blood out of it. Like you put water, you just poured blood out of it. So they took me to the hospital, and for your listeners, I'm gonna tell you how long ago that was. It cost $129 for the whole week. That's how long ago that was.
Wow.
And it'd be a fortune now, but it was $129, But every night, I gotta say this: my mother worked the night shift, and every night without fail, I would see her. She would come down there. I see this figure in white, because back then they wore white dresses and stuff. And I see her come down there, and she asked me how I was doing and things like that. And Mama always come to see how I was doing. General Hospital, which was like kind of like the knife and gun club for the Louisville at that time. I used to hear my grandmother and mother talk. They would talk about people being shot. The police had gotten in the habit of, they said, well, we shot him because we saw something flash in his hand. And there wouldn't be nothing, but nothing would be said about it. It just, okay, he got shot. That was the end of it. I remember hearing Mama and them saying it. And they would be angry, but nobody knew what to do. Nobody until King came along and started. I remember I got caught up in it, and I ended up in Washington, D.C. I was far away, couldn't hear him. But when I have a dream speech, I remember we all got in it. We got on the bus. I got a picture of me getting ready to get on the bus, headed for that. And that was it. We demonstrated out near Churchill Downs. And that was the one time I was arrested. They arrested us for being on private property, and I stayed the weekend. And my mother always had a philosophy that if you go to jail, you stay in jail, and somebody get you out. And she didn't get me out. Then the NCP lawyers got us out. I got the feeling that she was proud of what I did. Even though she left me in jail, she was still proud of what and stuff.
So with all these, all the challenges, before I move on to the next question, generalize your view of the world in general, your view of yourself, based on all that. Because we're going to transition to the next phase in a second. Give me a general idea of how you saw the world at that moment.
The world was a patchwork. It was like a quilt. Everybody had their, and it still is. Everybody had their belief system. Everybody was struggling. We still, I'm the word I'm going to use is lived in fear of the Klan and stuff like that. Because I had a white female friend that was a teenager too, and my mother she did not want me to have nothing to do with her because she was afraid of what would happen to me. Even though I lived in the city, still South. I was more of an observer than a joiner. And, you seen guys go join the Muslims and black Muslims, you see guys go bad and go to the streets and stuff like that. They were all in their way trying to fight something that they didn't fully understand. You had to sit and understand what discrimination breaks down into so many different ways. But you're talking about something where people were taught from the very beginning, since colonial days, that we're the alphas. You're not even, you're on the bottom of the list. That's it.
So with all that said, speaking of joining things, joining the Muslims, joining this, that civil rights movement, thousands of miles away, thousands of Americans are dying. Vietnamese are dying. Violence is at its peak in Southeast Asia. But a young man named Kenneth Sr. decided to join the Marine Corps, despite all of that. Your first major journey outside of Louisville was serving in Vietnam. What was that experience like as a young man exposed to a completely new culture and environment? And how did it impact your perspective? And why did you go?
I was a mama's boy. But I knew, because of the things I read, things that, seen on TV, I had to leave home. It was that pull. I was afraid to fly. I was afraid to leave. But that pull to leave was stronger, And I was 17, me and my best buddy joined. And I had a hard time in the Marine Corps because I kept being set back because I could do everything but run. I was terrified. I'd never been away, but I was terrified. And like to tell you the story, I told you the story before. We were bugle stick fighting, and I yelled real loud. Helmet strap was tight, and it pushed my jaw out of place. So my mouth was locked open. So the drill instructors did the usual stuff. They made really nasty gestures toward my mouth and stuff like that. He was in the right position for that. But they sent me to the Naval Hospital. So I'm sitting in the Naval Hospital, and they're gonna try to figure out how to get my jaw to slide back. So I'm fooling with it, and my jaw it slides right back. And I said, "Oh yeah, it works." I heard them coming down the hall, and I pulled it back out of there, and then they came and fooled with it until it slid back in, because I knew that if they came in there and my jaw was working, they're gonna persecute me for being a shitbird. So no, not me. So they got it fixed. And so I did learn something. They got it fixed, and then they gave me a bunch of lozenges, called lozenges. Well, see, there ain't no candy. And so when I got back to the barracks, what'd you do? I said, look what they gave me. Those things were gone, boy. So that was the closest thing to candy anybody had.
So you joined, you were a mama's boy, you had to get out of there. Things were in Louisville it wasn't a place that you at that time wanted to stay. And you decided to go to war. And walk me through that decision, and then tell me how did serving in Vietnam, fighting in Vietnam, how did it impact your perspectives on the world, in comparing to how you were raised and the environment you were raised in?
I never saw people like this. I never saw people live like that before. Tin roofs, or you see a woman walking along the road carrying weights, and I mean they walk 20 miles. Usually a beetle nut, which made the teeth dark. The cities were crowded. I mean, really crowded. Because I remember riding in the back of a truck, and there was NVA, and there was Arvin. The Arvins were supposed to be on their side, and one of them got hit, and they all started shooting in the air and stuff like that. And we were cranked up. We didn't know what was going on, And we got there, and the guys told us, they gave us a book. I remember they gave us a book, and this is what you do. And if you run a line, if you run into a mine, do this and do that. And the guy said, "Look, throw that book away. Let's throw that book away. It'll get you killed. And it's written by people that don't know what they're doing," and stuff like that. And I remember the first time I rode the Etwa, and I'm looking at this country, and it just, I mean, I'm from Kentucky, and I lived in the city mostly, but it was just so much open space, and it was how it was shaped up. It was shaped up a lot differently than where I was from. And then you saw rice paddies. Of course, you saw the constant helicopters and stuff like that flying over all the time, and you hear the explosions. You hear the explosions, and I remember I was watching the movie, See You, the one Finnish movie, and there's a scene where he walks up on the hill and he sees distant explosions at night, and that's the way it was. You saw these flashes at night. When we first arrived at Anwa, here we are, we're showing up with our duffel bags and stuff like that. We go to chow, everybody wearing helmets and flak jackets. You're going, fuck, what's this? Just like that. And everybody's eating with that. You don't eat with your cover on and stuff like that. Everybody's got on flak jacket. Then the mud was red. You didn't want to step in the mud because it would suck your boot right off, no matter how tight you had it. And there was they say one guy stepped up a curve and he sunk up to his neck. So they sent me to the 2-5 5th Battalion. And that's where I showed up, and that was it. I made some good friends. I try not to make no enemies. Then you had some weird stuff that happened there too.
So speaking of friends, you laid out your experience with race in Louisville, and now you're, if I'm not mistaken, you're encountering some diversity in your unit, because it was a diverse unit, right? Whites, blacks, Hispanics. I mean, was that your first experience, and how did that go, and how did that change your perspective on things?
I like people, and you had these guys that they did the black thing. Not, I don't mean the black thing, but they all hung together. I never questioned why, because I wasn't a cool guy or nothing like that. So, but I try to get along with everybody, and I got cut breaks because I'm not a kiss ass by no stretch. It's too proud for that, but I just get along with people. I remember many years ago. Somehow I got in contact with a guy that I fought with in Vietnam. He's from Louisiana. He's from the swamps of Louisiana. And I used to just get a kick out of him telling me stories about his home. And that might be why people like me, because I like to hear about their homes. And I remember I talked to him and he said, you know what? He said, you weren't like the other guys. He said, you were always friendly and kind and, you got along with everybody. And that was the way it was. I remember getting in. I remember almost getting into it with a black guy because he was used to being the only black guy there, and he got along. He worked hard to get along with the white guy, but I didn't work hard at it. I didn't work hard. But I knew stuff. I didn't have it, but I mean, I got along with everybody. I try to get along with everybody. I kept distance from the people that have trouble, because you have to understand that the military is a microcosm of society. You are going to run into people that you never met when you hang out. And that's it. So you have to make the determination. Well, who am I going to hang with? I'm hanging with this guy that's got all the trauma, or I'm going to hang out with other people, or be alone.
So, despite the tough time you had in Louisville, you didn't foster any hate for anybody. You went to Vietnam and you met individuals, and that was if I'm not mistaken, some of your first experiences with different races up close and personal, and meeting people and befriending people.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And, you met people I met farmers. I met like a guy from Louisiana. He called himself a coon ass. And then he explained what a coon ass was. I met, there was a guy from Montana. I know I got on his nerve because I got a kick out of the fact that he had a tiny sheep, full grown tiny sheep that they kept in the house like a dog called Binky. And, when his mother was right, I said, what did Binky do today? I just got a kick out of all these guys. I remember a guy named Skitoni. He was Italian. And he was he was good people. He was good people. He was an Italian guy. He was good people, man. The one picture that I've only seen once, and I went with your mother to see it, and I will not see it again. I'm not tempted to see it again. It's Full Metal Jacket. That's the one I don't want to see. The Full Metal Jacket, your mother said, I can see you reacted to that movie, because there's one scene where a guy comes to the house and he sees a big stuffed animal. And I'm going to my brother, don't touch it. Don't touch it. Don't touch it. And he picked it up and it blew him the smithereen. Or the one time I was talking to my friend, Ed, and we were talking about that scene where they shot this girl, and she was a teenager, and she was sniping at Marine. And I was explaining to him how, that scene, you were supposed to feel sorry for her. And he said under his breath, really low, she shouldn't have been shooting. And that's it. People got a misunderstanding that war is like the streets. It's not like the streets. There are no streets. There are no streets. A soldier's job is to conquer, to take. Policeman's job is a peace officer. He's to maintain the peace. There's a big difference between the two, because the soldier will only tell you once to surrender. And if you don't, there's not going to be an argument. There's not going to be nothing. You'll be just sudden death. You'll be gunned down if you got a weapon. There are things that happen. There are things that happen that, like I told you about the time the guy made a weed pipe out of a human femur. I told you about that. And, people are always amazed at how I can just talk about it and I don't get excited, but that was the way it was there. That kid, that mama's boy, disappeared. Because even my mother said she didn't know me when I came back. She said I had ice water for blood.
And so, speaking of that, you've had some, experiences that your life flashed before you. So with that understood, how did that make you value life? Well, how did you see life after that?
Life is limited, very valuable. Because especially when you look around and you see others suffer, and you see, you see others suffer, and you see the things that other people will do to another human being. This is a human being like you.
Was
Why
that a
would you do?
realization from Vietnam?
Yeah. Because a lot of times, like, they used to have like heat tabs. You know what they are. And they were blue without it, because we ate that stuff from Korean War, and most of that food could walk into a bar and order drinks, and we couldn't. We were 18, 19 years old. So heat tabs were blue like candy. And these guys used to light them and throw them to the kids. And that's when the kids tell them they'll burn and stick to their hand. And why would you do that? Why would you're here killing people as it is? And I always said to myself, it's stupid enough that I gotta kill people, let alone why would I torture them? But they would do things, and you just didn't say anything about it. You might get some blowback on this one, but when they went after Lieutenant Calley about what happened, they were wrong. But you understood why they did it. You got tired, of jumping through the jungle all day long, and then you get to this village where the Kong at. And they can't tell you where they are. That the minute you leave, they'll get killed, so they can't tell you. But they're there. They're underfoot, building weapons and stuff like that. And don't get me wrong, by no stretch of the imagination. I respect the Vietnamese. I respect them. Because they've held out against everybody. Those little tiny people, they deserve their nail shots. So they're tough. They're tough. You gotta look at them, man.
I think they do a bit more than have nail shops, Dad.
Yeah, and I know now, yeah, but I mean, just like the time I was at Hill 34, and the F4, the Phantom dropped a bomb, 250-pound bomb. And we got the Marines together. They got the Marines together and sent them right out there. I was a mortarman, so I didn't do this. So they went right out there to look for the bomb. Bomb was gone.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't long. That was like 20 minutes, and it was gone. They drugged that sucker away. A couple of nights later, we got it back. They built a log bomb, and they somebody said log bomb, and we all started scrambling. And when it went off, man, the shockwave rolled over me, and the shrapnel went through my hair and hit the guy behind me. That's a freakish story. There's some times that, I sat down and asked my best buddy one time, why did I make it? Because I did some dumb stuff and I didn't get killed, And he said, well, your guardian angel was probably a Friday and they didn't want to rearrange anything, so they let you go on that,
that was a very real experience. But part of your escape early on and throughout life was sort of your imagination. I know comic books, science fiction, and even model building were big passions of yours at once. How did those creative outlets provide an escape or window into new worlds when your mobility was limited growing up, and even after, even as an adult, you still sort of engage in a lot of those hobbies? How did they provide an escape?
Me and my buddy were talking one time. We were talking about Johnny Quest, and we're talking about the fact that Johnny Quest, it didn't matter to us that he was white, that his father was white, his guard was white, or Hardy. It didn't matter. We were in the adventure with him. And so when you read a book and you sat down and you read Skylark of Valor, Aua or Robin Hood, or any 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, you were in that adventure. That is what reading is about. That is what reading is about. You can't do that digitally. I mean, you can read the words from your pad and stuff, but you can't read it and imagine, because the greatest cable network you have is you, cable, in that feed. Because each time you read, you develop something and it expands, expands, and expands. So you're going to say, what's a warp? Well, that's how space is fold so you can shorter distances in space. Is that possible? Well, I got to go from the science fiction book to what someone has written to see if it's possible within my range of understanding. So you up to ante intellectual, you up to ante, and so you keep doing that. So when I read, I read actually volumes of stuff, and then you think about it, and can this be real? And sometimes I used to say, I'd make a movie on it. And a lot of the science fiction writers, they were either scientists or they were in something political, and like you had to think about what they were saying to you. You know what they were saying about society, like Starship Trooper. The only way you could be a citizen is if you served served in the government somehow, because a person that serves government has more working knowledge than a person that doesn't serve. And in many ways, that's true, because you have. I mean, we got a situation now where people don't know how the government actually works. They don't know how it works. But if you served in the military or you served something civil, you would get a hint of the government works like this. If you want to know about politics, be in the military, because the military is nothing but politics. But that was Robert Heinlein's theory, was that you had to serve the government in order to be a citizen. But he believed in one world government, which is problematic.
Why is
I
that?
did it one time.
Why is that?
Well,
I'd like to hear that.
if you have a one world government and the bad guys, just say the quote unquote imaginary bad guys take over, you have a hard time getting them out. You're gonna have a hard time getting them out. Because look at the confusion you got with two-party.
I think it's a bit more complicated than that, and I think that's the goal, is for us to have. I mean, some of your favorite. Speaking of science fiction, some of your favorite science fiction involves one world government. So we talk Star Trek and the Federation. The Earth is one place, and that's the idea. And you take anything, whether it be government, where you take humanity, you take AI, you take internet, you take anything, it can go one way or the other, but you hope for and you work for the best. So from my point of view, and this is not about me, but this, my point of view is that's the goal, and we're trying to get there in the best way we can.
But what would the human race do with paradise? That's a question. What would we do with paradise? If you achieved everything, if you got if you could kill all the diseases and you can live in peace, sort of like what they offered the human race in childhood. Then they offered them, you could work and live good, or not work and live good. And I'm not talking about where you're on welfare and you're scratching and stuff. You lived good. You can get an education if you want to, or you didn't get an education you want. What would man do with it? Because it seems we need to move forward all the time. And what I mean by moving forward is working toward the ending of the wars, the betterment of our fellow mankind. The better, the not where all the resources go to all of humanity. One of the things I always gave to when I was working was Project Hope. It was named after the ship, the SS Hope, which used to sail around. It was supported by the UN. Used to sail around to different places that were low income, and they would provide medical help to people, Africa, South America, all that stuff. These are people. They need to be lifted up. There's only so far corporations can go, because all they care about is the bottom line. But I want to see somebody get an education, because I think it's better when you have an education and understand somebody. than didn't. Like you said, I if I find somebody interested, I ask them questions. Here where I live at, this little old lady, we were talking one day, and she was comfortable enough to tell me she was German during World War II. So they moved her into the Sudetenland. They moved her and her parents in. And then when the Germans lost, she had to walk back to Germany. Imagine being a child and having to walk back to Germany hundreds of miles. That was it. That was it.
So let me say this, and let's get back on track.
Yeah.
But since you said some of those things, you can call it one world government or whatever, United Nations, but the goal is unity into cooperation. And I don't know, paradise is subjective. Anybody has their own view of what that is. But in broad terms of looking at it, it's cooperation, unity, equality, people treating people fairly, and however that ends up, then that's the direction we need to go. And how many things in Star Trek are reality now? Some of the technology reality now. They have scanners that scan people without having to to inject something into a person or withdraw things. They have communicators that communicate, cell phones, from far away, all these things that are imaginary. And so the idea of that federation, these people being all connected, it's an idea, and it's fiction, but it doesn't have to be, and cooperation doesn't have to be. But with that said, I
But
wanted to mention, you raised me on a lot of that. I was exposed to a lot of that science fiction and things, and you also raised me on travel. And one of the most impactful trips. Well, I want to highlight two impactful things for me. For all you listeners, I like to travel. I like new experiences. I remember one time, I don't know, 8 years old, going to bed, maybe in the middle of the week, thinking I'm going to get up and go to school. I wake up and I'm like, it's dark. What's going on? It's dark. And my dad said, "Come on, get dressed." And I don't know what the heck's going on. I'm not used to getting up before the light. Come on, get dressed. I get dressed. He has his, he's in the Coast Guard, and at the time he was on a ship called the Morgenthau. So he gets me up and, gets me dressed, and we go and get in the car, and I am completely clueless, but it's kind of exciting because I'm thinking like it's dark, and my dad has a uniform on. We're going somewhere. I don't know where we're going. It was a pretty good spirit. So he takes me. We go all the way out to Alameda, and we go board the Morgenthau. He's like, "You coming with me today?" So we go out, and the ship goes underway, and we go out into the water at the time. And I don't know where we went, but spent the whole day out there, and that was just an awesome time in my life. My dad's in the military and doing his thing, and I get to tag along. And I guess it was family day. I don't know. I guess that's what they had. But I
I was
remember
going
that
to the
distinctly.
yards.
Oh, we're going to the
Going to
yards,
the
and
yards,
just
yeah.
seeing this massive ship, especially to me as an elementary school dude. The ship is just slowly just drifting away from shore, and for me it was just mind blowing to see this thing slowly drifting away from shore and then propelling forward, and we're heading out. So, and I remember one moment, I don't know why this stands out, just kind of eating a banana on the side, on the deck, near the end, near the edge of the ship, and just throwing the banana peel into the water. And it was just cool. I'll never forget that. And another one, and I want to ask you a question after I mention this. Another one is you decided to take me and you across country on trailways. Trailways, for anybody who's not familiar with that, it was another bus brand like Greyhound. I think Greyhound owned Trailways now. We got on the bus, went from San Francisco. I think we did we stop in Chicago? We
Yeah.
went to Louisville eventually. Chicago is where my mom's side of family is, and Louisville is where his side, and we went across there. So those were really impactful for me. Why did you feel that was, why did you want to have those times? My brother was a bit younger. So why did you want to have those times with me and for us to go travel and have these experiences together? And what did that mean to you?
I didn't have those, and I tried to bond with you guys as much. I tried to remember. I told you one time that I gave you the love that I didn't get, and I just we needed those adventures. Those are memories, like you just said now that you have. And I remember you were trying to we were coming out of Milwaukee or somewhere, and you were trying to cuddle with this lady sitting next to you, and it was like flaring hands between both of you because you're reaching out for her, she was trying to fend you off. And that's it. And then you got mad because in Colorado, we went down a mountain and the guy was going down the mountain fast. He was going down the mountain fast and Cliff was right there. He said, "Oh, Dad, you should have woke me up," just like that.
I remember that.
I'm a black person, so I was beige knuckled. So, that.
Well, yeah, I lived in California. I lived in the middle of a bay. I'd never seen a mountain before. So, yeah, I mean, I see them every day now. But, yeah, that was a cool experience.
You remember, I used to ask you guys, I emphasized adventure because I used to ask you guys what adventures you had today. What adventures? Because you got to have. I mean, I don't care if it's something that happened at the store. You got to have an adventure. Let's go into the library. You got to have an adventure. I remember reading I used to go to the library all the time. And that's why my mother didn't have as much trouble with me as everybody else, because I read all the time. I remember the movie, it's a real old movie, Fantastic Voyage. Well, I read Fantastic Voyage when it was in the Saturday Evening Post. I read it in a magazine. It came in, it was a serial, and I remember it ending a lot differently than it did in the movie, I read stuff that, I read everything. I remember one time my mother left out a book called Hot Star. I went, wow, Hot Star. That must be science fiction. No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. And then she dashed across the room, throwing her negligee everywhere. This is not science fiction. With science fiction, somebody out there is going to go, I wonder if this can be done. Look at the Nautilus for 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. And by the way, when we took you up to the yards with us, they had the Nautilus there at the same time, and I got to go on her. That was a tiny boat. But I mean, I'm proud to be able to walk on the deck of the first nuclear submarine. The concept of flying dates all the way back to the Middle East. Look at the I always say anti-kilometer device, but that clock device that was created thousands of years ago to calculate the movements of the sun and stuff like that. Human being, embodied in every human being, is the genius to create. We can actually change our environment. We also have the thing where we'll swing a club at the drop of a hat. But look at this. Look at the wonderful things that has happened. The Hammurabi Code, the Magna Carta. Those things, even though done a long time ago, manages us today, gives us rules today. And so when I read science fiction and they had space wars, or I tended to like the exploration stuff, I going out and finding out what's new out, finding out if we can live out there. The one reason that people don't understand about space flight is we have to get ready because we don't all want to be on this ball if something happens. We have to become a spacefaring race so that the species doesn't get wiped out. Because nothing in the universe lasts forever. Our sun is middle-aged. So you say, well, wait a minute, Mr. Brecker, when you mean the sun is middle-aged? Think of a Homer Simpson. It's around the age of Homer Simpson. It's in his 40s. So it's going to get old one day. Well, I'm not going to live to see it. Nobody's going to live to see it. But you want to think about going out into space and leaving. And I believe that somewhere in the future, there's going to be a man or a woman sitting on the edge of the solar system. And they're going to hit a button. And they're going to warp out and reappear somewhere else. They're going to reappear somewhere else. I do believe that's going to happen. Because we're smart creatures.
Such complex thoughts from a man who puts dog biscuits in his son's lunch in middle school. You remember that?
Yeah, I do, man. And it was one time, I should have been suspicious because you guys never fought over the front seat. You always automatically changed. You never fought over it. But you both got in the back seat together. And then when I stopped at that light, in unison, y'all reached in your bag, pulled out your dog biscuits, and started beating me in the head with it. I don't know what made me put the dog biscuits in there though. I had the crazy stuff in me. So
Yeah, you're always doing fun stuff. I mean, it was just I think that was again, but let's talk about novel world. I thrive on novelty. It's because there was always something new. You're always like, I'd never tried this food before. Let's try it. Here boys, try this. We've never been here before. Let's go there. Check this new thing out there's always something. Is that curiosity that you thrived on, and I
I did that
picked
at
that
work
up.
though.
I mean,
I did
whatever,
that at work.
regardless.
Yeah, I interviewed. I introduced things to people at work that they never. They never have. You ever tried this kind of hot dog? Or you ever do this? Or you ever do that? And I think that's what they mess about me the most is that I always try to introduce them to something, or I talk to
Mhm.
them about something new, or I talk about fashion or something like that because it's all a part of who we are. And that's it. Race has nothing to do with who I am. I have one life to live, and it has to be this. It has to be the way I want to do it. And I would introduce you guys to stuff, and y'all would like it or not like it or stuff like that. You remember I could cook. I could cook a little bit. Remember I used to cook y'all breakfast burritos, and stuff like that. And it was great for the day we almost wrecked the car coming from church. And for your listeners, what happened was we'd always hit this bump coming down the hill, and the car would kind of fly like in mob pictures, it got fly in the air. One day we hit that bump too hard, and the car left the ground. All four tires were in the air. So we flew through the air, and when we landed in the same lane we were in, but pointed in the opposite direction. From the back of the car came a voice. Do it again. And I can tell you can guess who said that. Do it again. That's it. But that was it, Or or the time we went to the Coast Guard party and you disappeared. We didn't know where you were. All we know is that you came staggering back. You jumped in the back seat of the car and fell asleep. We know you were drinking beer with the hillbillies or what. You were gone. That was it. But it's fun. It's fun. And for
What?
your listeners, the reason you have those events is that you can't smell the smell on TV. Cable can introduce it to you. But when you go there and you hear another language, or you go there and you smell another smell, or you go and you go to a real Mexican restaurant where they're real Mexican cooking the food, the way they do it at home, versus some teenager following the formula. It's different. It's different. And this makes me want to see things. That you want to see, like my best buddy, he traveled he traveled the Pacific. He traveled to China and all over the place. He traveled all over the place. And he came back because when you travel somewhere, you can speak with authority. Like I always told him that I said, if I had money, I would live in France for about 6 months because I want to be properly insulted. You're American swine. Don't come back. Yeah, I used to have this joke about when they built Euro Disney, and they talked about the fact that the French people that worked at Euro Disney worked friendly like the Americans. Americans at Disney World act like it's a cult. Oh yeah, welcome to Disney. Oh, praise Disney. But you can imagine the French. Mickey does not want to speak to you, you little swine. Leave. You are an insult to the eyes. It's something like that. But I mean, I would like to go to Germany. I would like to go to. I really like to go to Scotland, and I'd like to take a chair, a folding chair, and just sit and look at all that. Watch the guys herd the sheep. I'd love to do that because that's peaceful.
But
Yeah, and there's Iceland. I went to Iceland. And the few days there, I had a ball. They're really nice people. Right now, it's kind of, the volcano's kind of acting up. But I mean, what would you think about living in a place where all your heat is free? You know, because of thermal heat, it's free. When doing our tour, she pointed over to these mountains and said there was a man who lived with his family in a cave. You know, they lived in a family with a cave. The food is good, and we went to a restaurant, and it was just like something out of a movie. It makes you set you down. They told you what was being served, all that. It was wonderful.
we're approaching the end of the conversation, but there's a few things I want to ask. Real quick, it just came to mind. What are some early indicators that you that you saw from me that indicated that maybe I was curious or maybe I was interested in the world? Or
You didn't talk about things that were local. You tended to talk about you talked broader, and we raised you guys to speak your mind, but with respect. And you'd say something you don't know. It's not like that. It's like this. And like one time you were talking about how columns were constructed in Greece, and you were really detailed. Then it was the time that I mean, you like going places and doing things. When I was a kid, I was a wanderer. I never stayed in my neighborhood. I was wandered off and played with kids. I'd be 4 or 5 miles away. My mother beat my butt one time because she saw me somewhere I wasn't supposed to be. But I just wandered, and you had it too, because you travel without. All you know is you want to go. You don't care if you go with somebody or without to go. And you did the same thing. When you went to Grimsby, that was an indicator right there. When you went to
Grimsby,
Grimsby
England.
Twice.
I went to Grimsby once. I went to what was
Oh.
it? Stoke-on-Trent the next time.
Yeah. But tell me something. When you went, you got along, didn't you? You didn't.
Yeah,
You
it
didn't
was
feel
cool.
out of place. You didn't feel out
It
of
was
place,
cool.
did you?
Nah, I mean, I feel out of place in normality, when I do interesting, weird things that I feel in place, I mean, I'm absorbing everything, that's interesting. It's just, I seek the out of the ordinary, like even with my vlogging, my YouTube channel, I'm looking for stuff that's not, sometimes there's been times where I've gone on Google and I was like, what's there to do here? And it gives you all the vanilla normal thing that everybody goes to. I'm like, forget that, what's the weird stuff? So I have my sources. If any of you listeners want to know about it, let me know. But speaking of strange, we're like I said, we're coming to the end, but what are some of the most strange, weird, or or out of the ordinary experiences you've either seen or participated in? In your traveling or.
Let's see. Well, I danced with the witches in Salem, Massachusetts. The strangest thing is what happened in Orleans when I touched that house. The lady had murdered slaves, and that was to date. That is the strangest thing that I've ever experienced. Because when I touched that house, it was a good day. And I had walking around and stuff, and I took pictures. And just in case, I can't call her name right now, but she murdered her slaves. And to the point that they took the slaves away from the house in New Orleans. Okay. And so I touched the house, and a chill ran down my back. As long as I maintained contact with the house, the colder the chill got. I broke into a sweat, and it wasn't that hot. And physically, I felt weak. And then I felt utter despair. And I mean, all of that coming out of just touching that was that without a doubt was the strangest thing. I'd been back to New Orleans a few times out on that street in that house. Nicolas Cage owned that house at one time. He owned that house at one time, and there have been strong events. It appeared in American Horror Story, but part of it wasn't true because you can't go in there. It's private. You can't go in there. It's one lady, a little old white lady that I guess the house doesn't bother her. Everybody else bothers. Yo, do I believe in the supernatural? Yes, I do.
So, two quick questions. One, is there one more? I mean, I'm sure there's multiple experiences you like to have, but name one experience or one place, one experience you want to have on your bucket list, or one place you want to go.
I would like a cruise without all the junk. Because having been a sailor, I was a Marine, and then I was an Army National Guard and Navy Reserve, and then I joined the Coast Guard. I haven't been on a ship. I'm weary of ships that are overloaded. And these ships are bigger than the Titanic. And they're overloaded, and they run on, I don't think they run on as cheap as possible. So I would like to just be on a cruise ship. There's one ride I would like, and that's from Iceland to the Netherlands. It's a ferry. And I saw that one time on travel TV. I would just sit down on the deck and just watch the water. It's very tranquil riding on a ship. And I told a lady the other day that at night, if you look out the stern, the cavitation of the screws hit the plankton, and it leaves an illuminated trail through the water. And that's just so cool to see that. But I don't care much for these cruise ships, because I've seen scenes where they're in stuff, chairs are sliding back and forth. And those chairs are supposed to be bolted down. That's it. That's no fun in it. They're just too big. They're bigger than the Titanic.
So as we wrap up,
with a big woman that looked like a bear, yeah. Yes, no, I'm just joking.
As we wrap up, what advice would you give others about the value of exploring the world and embracing new perspectives?
It'll make you an authority. You would see Arabs different. You would see Jews different. You would see Polish folks different. The joke used to be when I was in the Marine Corps, the Polish were backwards, and they were this, that, and other. They're the bravest people you'll ever meet. You ever meet. You let them tell you stories about their family and what they did. So if you're going and travel and you meet people, I recommend that you behave yourself. Do not act inappropriate for the country that you're in. Find out the rules, what you can do and cannot do, and go and enjoy yourself their way. And you'll find out it's not too bad. The case in point, they showed a guy, he was in Indonesia, and he was acting like an American. He was kicking stuff over and cussing at people. Next thing you know, you saw this crowd gather behind, and they were going to hurt him until he paid them off. They were going to hurt him. He started apologizing, because a lot of countries are not going to do that. Or the lady that was she was in Kuwait, and they told her she shouldn't be taking pictures, and she did it anyway. Always remember that the Constitution that protects your right only extends to 300 miles off the coast. It's not in another country. And always check the State Department to see what condition that country is in. It's always wise to read it, because some countries, they don't want you there where you are. Okay?
Gotcha. All right, Dad. Well, thanks for this conversation. I really love talking to you in general, and it's always good to share you with the world. You were in the if any of you are followers of my YouTube channel, Novel World Travels, I had an episode where I visited a ship he was on in one of the Great Lakes. It was called the Mackinac, and he kind of shared his experience there. And so thanks for having time. My dad, I also want to mention, he just retired. So this kind of helped enable this to be available. And he still has some adventures ahead of him. So I was talking to him the other
And
day. Hopefully
he's trying to get me to go to Vietnam because the Coast Guard vessel, the Morgenthau that he rode on, is now part of the Vietnamese Navy. And since I fought over there as a Marine, and since I served on the Morgenthau, the Coast Guardman, he's trying to get me out there because he thinks that's ironic. He wants to write about it, you know.
It's ironic, and it's a great great story to tell. I mean, it is. I mean, it fought in Vietnam. It was a Coast Guard cutter over here that you served on, and now it you know, it kind of tells a story of, you know, how things can come full circle, and also how things change, and that's okay. That's okay. But thanks again, and
Okay.
if you enjoyed my dad, if you enjoyed the podcast, go ahead and you know, leave a review, and you know, let me know what you thought of everything. And I love you guys, and I'll see you soon.
Okay, everybody continue to be blessed, okay?
Thanks for joining me on the Novel World Travels podcast. Subscribe on your favorite platform, leave a review, and share it with your friends. Join me on my community on Facebook. That's / Novel World Travels, and Instagram, Novel World Travels. And join me on my webpage, which is novelworldtravels.earth. And remember, life is outside. And if you can't get there, join me and my friends on the Novel World Travels podcast. I love you all.